So I wanted to talk Minnesota Vikings for a minute. If you look, so the Minnesota Vikings, if you look on paper, this is a very talented team on paper. Bring in Zadarius Smith. You hopefully get Danielle Hunter healthy as the edge rusher position. You got Kirk Cousins. And I went back and watched Vikings games from last year, and I've obviously watched Kirk Cousins all the way back to the Michigan State days because I follow the Big Ten. And Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. Obviously, they're always going to be a little bit limited because he's not he'll never be even a good scrambler. He's a solid at best scrambler. You see that he can make plays on the run across his body, but that's never what he's going to be. But the big optimism for the Minnesota Vikings is the offensive line continuing to prove, and Christian Darrisaw, Urza Cleveland. That is the big optimism for the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins' success, because you have to believe if this offensive line keeps improving, that Kirk Cousins is just, that's going to give, Kirk Cousins another notch in improvement. And you saw this offense at times was very scary when Kirk Cousins had time to throw. He was able to find Jefferson and Thielen across the middle. KJ Osborne, the number 3 wide receiver, really emerged last year. But as this offensive line improved, Kirk Cousins gets time for Osborne, Thielen, and Jefferson to make plays. You got to really like what this Vikings team could do. Delvin Cook, one of the best running backs in the NFL. You got to believe that, just by odds, that it's very likely that Cook, Danielle Hunter, Zadarius Smith, the big time, I would say those 3 guys, obviously Justin Jefferson had it, but if you got to believe that there's good odds that those 3 guys stay healthy this year, I'll just say if they stay healthy, you got to like what Minnesota could do. They could do some damage. And, sadly, as much as I've hyped up my Detroit Lions, now that I've dove deep into the Minnesota Vikings, I kind of like this team as the number 2 team in the division, but I do think they can challenge Green Bay. Obviously, they did last year. They beat Green Bay one of the 2 times. But, the Lions will be tough for the Vikings because the Vikings they beat the Lions by 2. The Lions were right in it last year, and then they also they lost later in the season to Detroit. But Green Bay and Detroit are going to be very tough for Minnesota. You got to believe that it's very likely they could split, go 1-1 with those 2 games. But this is a team that could easily sweep the Bears, and like I heard on the radio today, you got to believe that the Bears, only shot against Minnesota would be at Chicago. Minnesota's a tough place to play. You got to believe that the Vikings crowd and the excitement will get them over the hump, and they should, take care of the Bears at home. But I think they would sweep the Bears if I had to put money on it. But yeah, Thielen's still a playmaker at 34 years old. Adam Thielen. He is, I think he's a guy that's, still pretty underrated. I think there's a lot of casual football fans that, don't know who Adam Thielen is, but is a guy that, tremendous story, a guy that was, walk on, unsigned, and, a practice squad guy at one time, just kept working and, really burst onto the scene in, 2016 with some of the big games he had. But yeah, Thielen, what a receiver he's become. And, adding Justin Jefferson was outstanding. But, Minnesota, the interior defensive line, they got a few guys. Harrison Phillips, Armon Watts is okay. Wanham was pretty solid. He was kind of like a 50-50 guy. They did decide to bring him back, but he was another guy. I mean, if they would have released him, it would have been I don't think it would have hurt him too much, but maybe they're factoring in that maybe Danielle Hunter might not be healthy, so that could be part of why they chose to bring back Wanham. But Wanham's all right, and they got some guys. They have some talent. Eric Kendricks. They drafted Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma, Lewis Seen, and Andrew Booth in the secondary. Should be interesting. So we will see with the Minnesota Vikings, but. You gotta like the direction this team's heading. Kevin O'Connell's first year with the Vikings. No more Mike Zimmer, but if you're a Vikings fan, this could be a good thing because it sounded like Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer's relationship wasn't super good. So you got to believe that his relationship with Kirk Cousins should be better. Now I'm throwing out a lot of what if scenarios and thinking as optimistic as I can, like banking on that Delvin Cook, Zadarius Smith, and Danielle Hunter will be healthy, but. You kind of, not that I shouldn't make analysis based on feelings, but you got to believe that the Vikings last year had a lot of things go against their way. So obviously Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins' relationship wasn't good. They lost, they blew leads in games. They lost some games they shouldn't, and they've had injury. Danielle Hunter getting hurt, that's just misfortunate. So you got to believe that at some point things are going to start to go your way. With good guys like Kirk Cousins and players that work hard like Kendricks, you got to believe that things were going to start rolling your direction at some point. And that's always been my belief. Guys that work hard, guys that stay after it, like Kirk Cousins. Sounds like Kevin O'Connell's like that. You got to believe that things are going to start to, the dice is going to roll in your favor at some point. So that's why I'm a believer in the Minnesota Vikings. Heading into 2022, I think this team, I was listening to Brett Coleman and EJ Snyder, and I think they said it best, this team, and many others have said this as well. So credit if who's ever listening has made this claim. I think this is a team that's got a high floor, and a team that's it would be very hard to imagine this team not winning at least 7 games. So that would be interesting to see there.